vibey. So how many of you are here representing New Orleans Entrepreneurship Week? Raise your hand. Oh, yeah, we've got some folks. So we are a lead partner, part of the New Orleans Entrepreneurship Week. This sort of effort is being put on by a lot of entrepreneur support organizations in our community this week. And it's really about building community around supporting founders and innovation. And so we're really excited about Tulane Innovation Day. We've got an exciting day for you. And I am here to introduce our keynote. But before I do that, I have to thank a few people. That's standard, right? First, I want to thank my team. I'm going to give a shout out to Sharon Goldsmith and Jay England. They're the leads on Tulane Innovation Day. A quick round of applause for them. They work really, really hard. To everyone here, I want to thank you for showing up with your energy, your curiosity, and your commitment to building what's next. Look around. This room is what a thriving innovation ecosystem looks like, and you're very much a part of that. Today, we're honored to welcome two extraordinary leaders, innovators whose careers embody what it takes to build, to scale, and sustain impact in today's fast-moving innovation economy. These leaders don't just talk about innovation, they live it. Today, they'll share insights that you can apply immediately, whether you're a founder or someone helping to shape a founder in our community. Their journeys reflect passion, resilience, and the kind of strategic vision that inspires all of us. Bong Suh is an accomplished executive and board leader with experience spanning public and private companies. He has served in a senior role as a CEO, as well as a CFO positions at organizations such as CNET, Coremetrics, Dynamic Signal, and Wine.com. Bong's perspective bridges finance, operations, and strategic growth with a focus on building resilient, scalable enterprises. Bong is married to a Tulane alum, and all three of his children are Tulane graduates. And his twins are going to Tulane's med school. Yes, we're very excited. We're also honored to welcome back Brett Hurt, a serial entrepreneur and investor. Brett co-founded Coremetrics and later founded and led Bizarre Voice through its unicorn IPO. He also co-founded Data.World, helping establish it as a leading data catalog platform, drawing on decades of startup investment experience. Brett is also the author of The Entrepreneur's Essentials, a practical guide for founders navigating venture creation, capital formation, and long-term value building. Brett is also a Tulane parent, and he is our 2026 Distinguished Entrepreneur of the Year from the Albert LePage Center. So please welcome Bong and Brett.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. So for those of you that were there last night, my theme was magic. And this is a very magical moment for me because when I was just 26 years old, coming out of the Wharton School where I got my MBA, I was looking for mentors and looking for my first board member ever. And at Coremetrics, Bong materialized, and we've been very good friends ever since. And I've really grown a lot thanks to his mentorship. So this is a really magical moment where it's been in the making for a long time now. Like pretty much half my life.
We've known each other for 26 years.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna open this up more like a conversation between friends.
Yeah.
Because he knows way more than I do.
Not true.
So it'll be really, I think, kind of an insight into like if you're having dinner with us, this is the kind of conversation we would end up having a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, cool. So I mean, here we are in the exponential of exponential curves. This is the AI moment. You and I have been pioneering for a long time, And one of the things that they didn't cover in your bio is you founded BuyDirect back in the day, which was one of the original .com e-commerce companies. You were CEO there. And how do you think about this moment, and what advice would you give to students in terms of riding this wave like you rode past innovation waves?
So when I first met Brett, it was just the original .com wave. And those things kind of happened quickly, and then there was the cloud, and then there was this thing called the smartphone, and all these, and I guess the logical progression now is we have AI. And so when I always think about these different waves, I'm going to go a little literary on you, but I think about a quote from Ernest Hemingway, I think it was in The Sun Also Rises, where somebody asks, how did you go bankrupt? And he said 2 ways, first gradually and then suddenly. And I think the truth in the way all these waves happen is there's a lot of people working on these different things, but to our consciousness, we don't see it. And then all of a sudden, kabang, it's ubiquitous. And I think that's what's about to happen now, and each wave is successively faster. So this one's going to hit us, and is hitting us.
It's hitting us.
In such a fast way that what seems novel is going to feel like normal in 6 months. And I think that as a result of that, we always used to say you have to look around corners. You have to think about what's about to happen. I think the pace of change is happening so quickly now with this one that you actually have to look around 2 corners. You can't just look around the first one and expect, oh, okay, AI is going to write my term paper for me or anything like that. And now you have to think about, okay, after that, how do I really add value if basic things are now commoditized? So I think you have to think about things, a little ahead of time. You can't look 3 corners around because then you'll be too early. And, one of our mantras is don't start something too early. It's always usually the second person who comes through who does really well. And I think in this particular situation, you really have to focus on what's the second generation of what things are going to happen.
Any predictions on what the second generation is going to be?
I mean, anybody that tells you they know is lying.
Yeah.
So, no, the predictions, like if my kids were going back into Tulane now, I originally told them, if you're going to make money, be a computer science engineer, right? Like learn how to program. That kind of went away, and it's anything that makes humans human, anything that's really focused on what humans are. It might be as fundamental as something biological. So, I think it was mentioned my daughters are going to be doctors, but I mean anything that's oriented towards biology or the human brain, and then at the same time anything that adds creativity, what makes us who we are. Obviously, those won't go away, but this is just another kind of like an industrial revolution. It's going to just automate certain things that we used to have to toil on all the time before. It was, maybe in the farm and maybe sawing wood and doing these things. And now it's going to be with particularly LLMs and words and, creating documents and, the written language. It's going to be a commodity, and you got to be on top of that.
So back in the .com boom, you kind of focused on revolutionizing retail. And that was, our wealthiest Texan, where I'm from in Austin, is Michael Dell, which hit that wave like incredibly profoundly with the whole build-to-order movement and collecting the cash flow up front and et cetera. And he hit the wave so well at that inflection point that he created more wealth than anybody else that I know in Texas. And so I'm just curious, like, as you look at the industries now, what would be the industry you would point at if you were a student?
By the way, fun fact that you don't know.
Yeah.
I was almost the first company that Michael Dell ever bought.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a funny story, but when he was going to buy it, buying companies. He was coming down and
This was for BuyDirect.com.
yeah, it's for
Yeah.
BuyDirect, and
Yeah,
at the end of the day, they chose not to at the last second,
Oh,
but
wow.
because he wouldn't pull the trigger on ever buying a company. He did
Right.
later, but that was
Right.
he couldn't
When
do
they're
it then.
much, much bigger. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the easy answer is anything with infrastructure, which is why you see so many billions of dollars being poured into data centers, being poured into energy. Because the real rate limiter right now is going to be, is there enough energy to run all these data centers, given the efficiency of the chips and how much heat they produce? And then, you know, the power behind all that, the chips behind all that. So that's where all the money goes. You know, the classic saying, you don't need to be, you know, mining for gold. You just want to sell picks and axes to the gold diggers.
Right.
So that's the easy answer. I think, you know, it's such a dynamic situation that the other industries, I think I get back to, and, you know, we had a lot of discussion about this before, you know, obviously the human body, healthcare, and everything related to healthcare, all things kind of biological, you know, as I mentioned before, those are the easy answers. We're going to find new industries that we've never even dreamed of because we're going to be unleashing billions of people's intellectual capacity to do things and not being bogged down by, you know, a lot of the labor that was required before. So, you know, spoiler alert, he's an incredible tech optimist. I'm an incredible tech optimist. I think it's going to be an incredible moment. But, you know, I would shoot this back at you because as I mentioned, this guy knows a lot more than I do. What do you think are going to be the real big industries?
Well, one thing on data centers, which is really interesting, is that for new construction starts, when you compare office buildings to data centers now has crossed over, and there's more data center construction in the entire United States when you look at it than office buildings, which is kind of like mind-boggling, because you know at this moment that we're recording this, we're just over 3 years since the launch of ChatGPT, right? That was November 30th of 2022. And there has now been around $7 trillion allocated worldwide towards the creation of AGI. My answer to this on industries would be whatever you want to point at that you're passionate about, because this is like the invention of electricity. It's going to touch every single industry and radically transform both the efficiency of that industry as well as the creativity of that industry. And so, you know, we were just having this discussion in the Tulane Innovation Institute meeting, and it's really an opportune time for you to just say, we want to revolutionize energy, or we want to revolutionize, you know, curing infectious disease, or whatever it is that you feel passionate about. So the advice from me to a student would be whatever literally pulls you, and then become the expert at using AI to revolutionize that industry. So it's a really different time in some ways than the dot-com revolution, because back then it was pretty narrowly focused. There were a lot of people talking a big game, and you know, you and I both went through the pain of the dot-com bust, which was truly painful. You know, you were on my board of directors, and we went from 100 customers down to 3, as 97 of our customers went out of business, almost went out of business. You know, I talked about that a bit last night, and how we had a week of cash flow, or of cash in the bank, and I went into Arthur Patterson's office with Eye of the Tiger, and he wrote a $40 million check, and we survived, right? But it was a near extinction event. This is different, because the game that was being talked in the dot-com boom is how the internet was going to transform everything, but then there was this big interruption to that, and it was directionally correct, but just the timing was a little bit off. This one is transforming everything simultaneously. It's just happening in some industries a lot slower because of the inertia of to change. And part of it is the dystopian fear of job loss, that the biggest problem in large companies or large institutions is people being so afraid to embrace AI because they think it's just going to replace their job. And so some companies have a lot of inertia, but I think we're looking at literally millions of new startups being created over the next couple of years, because you can revolutionize almost any industry that you want to, and that's super, super exciting if you're a student, because as long as you're truly passionate about it, you can really go for it in any industry, I mean, that you can think of.
I'm going to put you on the spot because he has a junior here at Tulane. So what did you tell Rachel?
I told her that. I said honestly, it's for Rachel. I said, whatever you're truly passionate about, as long as you know that you're passionate about it, you should go for it. That's my answer to any student. And like I would take like, you know, one thing that you said that I would disagree with is I actually think engineering computer science is perfectly suitable to study right now, because we're going to need people that really understand the architecture of how these things work. And they're going to be like Mickey Mouse and Fantasia with the magic wand. You know, they're going to be able to just, I mean, you can already do that. Actually, the February 5th release of Claude and then Codex, you know, the OpenAI release coming out after that from OpenAI, those you can one-shot build a full application now with one prompt, you know, which is like nuts. And again, you know, we're just over 3 years into this, so just try to put yourself in a place where you imagine another 3 years from now in an exponential curve, and it's very, very hard to imagine. I had one person on my podcast, Love Conquers Fear, Jeremiah Owang, who works with Reid Hoffman, and it's a blitzscaling fund focused on AI, and we're investors in it. And Jeremiah told me on that podcast, episode 21, that Reid Hoffman can't see beyond 2 years right now. 2 years, you know? So the predictions we were making the dot-com days were like 10, 20-year predictions, you know? So it's really wild to be at this moment.
Yeah, to your point, you know, the acceleration of change is happening.
Right.
And, you know, you raised something before, and, you know, I generally agree that, you know, computer science you're going to need, because machines aren't going to cover it all. But we both started building a lot of different things, but particularly software companies. And what happened in early February was a massive shift, if you looked in the public markets, about all this money that was going into SaaS products leaving. It was, you know, the SaaS apocalypse, they called it, where $1 trillion was lost in SaaS companies over in one day. And I'm also curious from your perspective, but it's before, to build a software company, it was about the cost and time of hiring engineers to build the product. Mm-hmm. Given what AI can do now, it really goes towards what made these companies successful, which was the go-to-market.
Right, that's right.
The people, the sales teams, the customer service, all that ability to be able to sell the product and service the product and provide value was way more valuable in what made companies successful versus the ones that failed. And I don't think that goes away at all. And, you know, to the point earlier that it's all about the humans and the things that make us human, and people buy software. So you're going to need people to sell software too.
Right. And service it.
Yeah, and services. And I'm curious your perspective on that too.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, a wise man that was on my board at Coremetrics once told me, revenue cures many ills. Of course, I'm talking about you. And getting go-to-market right is super important. You know, you get go-to-market right, then fundraising follows. I know you and I agree with that. And that was what saved Coremetrics, is us winning Walmart and other big retailers as the dot-com wave hit them. You know, we were just too early on the front end of that curve, whereas the pure dot-coms who did not have the metrics they needed to run their business, so they literally did hit a wall because they were totally out of whack with their cost of customer acquisition compared to what kind of yield they were getting from their customers. So we went through the pain of that. But you know, that's super true for this moment. I mean, it's one thing to manifest and build a product from scratch, and it's cool that that's now being done. The barrier to creativity is being absolutely shattered in this AI moment, which is super exciting. It's a whole nother thing to go to market right, get the relationships right, get the partnerships right. You know, that's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, those are all the important steps of building the company, and I think those will always be important parts about building a company, and that will never change. And so I think what just changes is there's going to be more types of companies, and these businesses will be smaller. You just don't need as many people. And I think people will be way more creative about providing experiences, about providing products that really add value. I think it really unlocks a lot of people who have tremendous creativity to build different kinds of companies that we can't even think about today. So
Yeah.
I think we're on to, it's going to be really fascinating.
Let's talk about mentorship, because this is such a special moment for me, and I really want to thank you again for all of the help you've given me over the years. And you know, one thing that makes Tulane super unique, and you should be really proud of, is that your number of mentors per student is like off the charts high. There's well over 100 mentors that surround students and helps them with their ventures of all different types. And it's really, I mean, you know, everything from energy experts to healthcare experts. It's really, really cool, like how broad that is. So students are actively tapping into that. But what would you say to a student in terms of selecting a mentor?
I mean, it's kind of organic, and you know, to your point of mentorship, you know, I was raised always pay it forward, and you know, there were my father immigrated over here from Korea after the war, and he tried to start a company. He didn't have a business. He didn't have a factory. He got a government contract, and even when the man he didn't have a physical plant, so somebody gave him a break and said, "You can borrow mine for 2 weeks as long as." So somebody dropped off some chemicals, and they asked, "Where's his forklift?" He didn't have a forklift. He didn't know where it was. The guy goes, "You know, you're gutsy. I'm going to try to help you." He rolled the spare tire down, rolled the drum off the truck, fell onto the tire, and then rolled it into the factory for him. And you know, he says, "I never did it alone. I always did it with other people who kind of believed in me." And he always paid them back. He always made sure he thanked them and always helped them. And you know, I kind of come from a tradition of that. And I think that's what makes this world go around.
For sure.
And so we wouldn't be sitting here today if we weren't connected by friends, and you know, we weren't able to meet otherwise. And then I think mentorship just kind of happens organically. And I think it's been a privilege of mine to help. I was just, you know, having to tally this up, over 20 different CEOs to, you know, who are all now dear friends, but also just be able to take the few things that I've learned and help them as they go on this journey. And one of the things, and I'll get Brett to talk about it as well, you know, the journey of entrepreneurship, it's not easy. It's not for everybody. In fact, I certainly wouldn't recommend it for a lot of different people, just because it's just one of these different things. And I think it's a very lonely road, and a lot of mistakes have been made before by a lot of other people. And to the extent that you can pass those on and guide them through all the landmines, it's a really valuable thing. And I wouldn't have been able to do any of the things I did without a mentor. And it was a privilege to work with you. Obviously, you had a tremendous amount of talent, but just being able to pass on things to you was really helpful.
Well, thank you. And I would also just add to that, to really, I didn't do this with you, so this is not advice that applies to you, because I truly got lucky with you. I mean, I felt like the immediate chemistry with you, and we always had that, and you helped me through the lowest of times and the best of times. But one thing that I would give as advice is, in my book, The Entrepreneur Essentials, available for free online. You can just get it at theentrepreneuressentials.com. And chapter 12 of that book is on how to reference potential advisors and investors and board members, and it teaches you how to really go off script and checking their references, because you want to make sure you especially probe on what they behave like when the chips are down. And having a mentor that really has your back when the chips are down, because there's no such thing as a business that goes up and to the right forever. It never happens that way. Even NVIDIA, like the most valuable company right now, Jensen Huang at one point had 6 months of cash in the bank and bet everything on graphics chips, and before he even had the graphics chips to bet on, and that could have been it. That could have been the end of it. So you gotta have people that really absolutely believe in you in all phases. They should be honest with you, but they should believe in you and not act as a jerk when the chips are down. So, any parting words for the aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah, I have one thought in this world of AI, which is, and I know you'll agree with me, businesses always take on the personality of their leaders. And as a result, culture is everything. And that's not something a machine's going to be able to create. The culture matters so much, which is why Tulane is such a wonderful place and why all my kids had a fantastic time here and really learned a lot, because it's so supportive and it's such a collaborative culture. I always stress with all the CEOs that I work with, it is absolutely important that your values permeate through the company. And if you have somebody who, all the same things are true, what every entrepreneurial study will tell you that it's the values that matter of a company and why you patronize certain businesses and not. And the classic values of integrity, transparency, and a real willingness to help and make people better are the key foundations. And I think we should not lose sight of that in what is about to start happening, over the amount of change through technology that's coming down the road. And I think, again, it's all those things that are really going to differentiate all the businesses going forward.
Yeah, and I would just close by saying, you're truly in a magical city. I mean, this is the birthplace of magic, New Orleans, and you're going to have more and more magical powers coming online that absolutely shatter the barrier to creativity. You've got AI accelerating exponentially. You've got quantum computing that's going to come online. You've got robotics, which will be the physical embodiment of that, and you have brain-computer interfaces. And this university, from just the heart and love that it has and the connection to the community, is so special, and it's such a creative city and such a creative university that you should be really embracing that and cherish that you're in that type of environment where so many more entrepreneurs are going to get to be very successful because they're going to have these superpowers coming online. And it's just the only limit you have is the limit of your own imagination in terms of what the world needs. And I think we're going to have many, many millions of personalized products and services that we can't even imagine today. They're going to be created by students here as well as students elsewhere. But I'm rooting hard for Tulane. I really believe in this environment, and it really is special. And I get to see it through our Rachel's eyes. His daughter, one of his daughters, also named Rachel. But you get to see it through your Rachel's eyes, and they just absolutely love it here. I mean, his daughters loved it here so much they're coming back for medical school. All right, so that tells you something about how special this place is.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, what an
for having
honor.
us.
Yeah, thanks.
Really
Kimberly.
appreciate it.